All right, hi everybody. My name's Devin. Appreciate you guys having me here today. Who here has been to Cosm? We have one right down the street here by Hollywood Park. I see a couple hands. So for those who've been, we'll maybe give you a little bit of insight into the experience and everything we've kind of put into play, right? And for those who haven't been, hopefully by the end, you have a good understanding of when you come into our venues. I think there's a lot of wow. I think we just heard, maybe for some people overwhelming, but nonetheless, I think there's a lot of wow when you come in there. But very importantly, there's also just a lot of effort in company building and platform building, and I want to share a little bit about that approach that we take in order to deliver the experience. So let me jump in and really kind of start and give you that background about how we think about building experience as a platform. As you heard earlier, tech for tech's sake is not the goal, right? Tech is service to experience, and we see ourselves as an experience platform with a very specific kind of unique approach, right? Which we call shared reality. And shared reality is about bringing together the best of the digital worlds, right? So that VR, AR, XR, all those are words, right? Bringing them in with the experience economy, the communal experiences, so that these things we can share together, and that I think is really the transformational part of what we're doing. But building out that experience really requires a lot of core expertise. And so to give it a little bit of color into how we built this company, we've done this through a series of acquisitions that started about 5 years ago. And that history is really critical in terms of the end-to-end approach. We are so vertically integrated in everything you see that we deliver in our venues, and that actually comes from the acquisitions that we've made over time, really starting with a company called Anderson that had a subsidiary called Spitz. Spitz goes back over 75 years. Armand Spitz is one of these, kind of the godfather of the planetarium industry. He invented the dodecahedron starball projector, which is, if you were visiting one of the early planetariums that he helped really proliferate across the East Coast in particular, that was that centerpiece. And at that point, you're talking about a planetarium experience. And yes, we're talking about planetariums. We're going to get to Cosm venues here in a minute, right? But Spitz was really pioneered the planetarium industry 75 years ago, and now is known for Spitz domes. So Spitz domes are famous in industry. All the original IMAX dome screens are Spitz domes, right? And so that physical structure is an important part of what we do. Evans & Sutherland is a company that we acquired that has tremendous computer graphics history, going back with Ivan Sutherland as again, kind of one of these heralded figures, the inventor of Sketchpad, the first graphical user interface, the first VR headset back in 1968, the Sword of Damocles, right? Ivan Sutherland helped create that, and again, shows this connection between our company now in the virtual reality, shared reality, immersive technologies going back that far. And when we think about that planetarium experience, what is a planetarium, right? It is really the first digital immersive theater. The goal is to take us all to space together, right? And Evans & Sutherland, through this computer graphics history, developed the world's first 3D planetarium software back in 1981 in Digistar. That is the foundation. If you come into our Cosm venues and you're blown away by the women's Final Four game tonight with UCLA playing, tomorrow night, right? Tomorrow night? Tonight. Tonight's the semifinals. I'm getting ahead of myself, right? You gotta win tonight. But that same core technology that's making that game look incredible and lifelike like you're there goes back to 1981, the world's first 3D planetarium software. And what does a 3D planetarium software really mean? It means that up until that point, the planetarium experience was the view of stars from Earth, right? No three-dimensionality of it. You were seeing what does it look like at night, and you can look around and you can tell the stories there. For the first time, you can actually fly around. So in a lot of ways, this was one of the early game engines, 3D game engines, right? To be able to fly around all around the universe and understand the three-dimensionality of space. Again, very important foundational pieces. We've done a lot of work in the parks and attractions side. And then about 5 years ago, we started building this business with the acquisition of Evans and Sutherland. And then on the production side, and we'll talk a little bit about the production tools, acquiring a production company called Live Like VR, which was the leader in VR production work. And give you some background there. Since the acquisition, our team, before we open our venues, has done the VR production work for the Tokyo and Beijing Olympics, the World Cup, like distributing to headsets like Quest headsets and with NBC here in the United States, with CCTV in China on Pico headsets, right? So all these pieces coming together, just trying to give you a little bit of a smattering. And the more recent acquisition we made is a company called C360 that specializes in immersive camera technologies. So again, a common thread. We're starting to pile on these kind of common threads, right? A common thread around immersive, meaning capture at least 180 degrees, all right? To kind of not just drive a dome experience, but those are used, if you're watching an NFL or college football game, there's a good chance you've seen our cameras in the pylons being used on broadcast, where you can look at a small portion of that image and it goes to air that way. So just a quick little history there of some of the companies that have come together and that we've built on to deliver this ultimately fan experience. And the starting point for this fan experience, right? Because again, it's not about the technology. Instead, it's about this desire that fans have to come together and watch your teams play, to celebrate those moments, right? And that's true for sports, but it's also true for entertainment. So that building block for us as we think about this business was not just take the technology, but what is the fan habit? What is the experience that people want that we can put technology to play to make that a better experience? And in this case, take something that happens in one place, AKA that, Final Four match tonight, and take it to multiple locations all at once. And so that is our platform, and we really custom designed our venues. Our venues are ground up builds. We have one in Los Angeles right next to SoFi Stadium. So we're basically SoFi Stadium and into a dome, and we're right in the middle, right? So three of the, I think, coolest venues you're gonna find anywhere in the world. And then we're also in Dallas, in North Dallas area, development called Grandscape, and we're opening next year in Atlanta and Detroit. And those venues are more than just a box that we put tech inside of, right? We really have to think about the experience, and we'll kind of step through this, but we really focus not just the dome as that, showcase of our technology. The hall is also this incredible wraparound screen, and the deck, we talk about those three key areas where, again, that dome it's a 90-foot wide. There, you have 700 people going nuts inside of there. You have the energy. The seating is completely different seating arrangement than we'd have in a theater, right? And we take you to that UFC fight, that basketball game. We just did some NASCAR events and some golf events. So really transporting an audience into different experiences. The hall is an important part, not just as overflow. So we had a Lakers game last night, packed in the dome, packed in the hall, because fans want to come out together, give them different price points. And it's a great experience because you have this giant wraparound screen that's basically the second best place to watch sports in LA, next to our dome. And it allows us to also program different day parts. I mean, frankly, something like March Madness is a perfect example. All the games going on in the hall, great place to watch it. But we'll have, the Dodger game on Saturday while we're also doing the Final Four, right? So lots of different programming choices and how we set up the venues. And then the deck is that outdoor respite. If you do need to take a break, and by the way, it's an incredible outdoor spot. It's almost like a Soho House vibe as you sit out over Hollywood Park area. You got a great view of SoFi Stadium there. Again, think about the human experience as well as how we build this venue. Now, let's get a little deeper into the display. I mentioned the Spitz domes are famous in industry, and that means that we're actually designing and manufacturing those dome structures. So if you come into our venue, that giant thing that's wrapping around you, it's actually our team that built the whole thing, which is really pretty incredible. Our team outside of Chatsford and outside of Pennsylvania, outside of Philadelphia, excuse me. And that's a critical step to the quality of the experience. And then the software that drives that display. That software is what we call our CX engine, right? And that's what I mentioned has ties all the way back to Digistar, the first 3D planetarium. Because everything that we're doing, just like when we're flying around the stars in 3D, everything we're doing is real time game engine driven, right? Meaning we have this incredible flexibility in terms of how we present content, bringing in immersive, massive, 12 and even in some cases 24K video, bringing in multiple video feeds, driving then with what we call our CX Pro layer, Unreal Engine. Everybody familiar with Unreal Engine? Right? Kind of eating the world in terms of computer graphics, whether you're talking about video games or movies and TV shows. We have a platform that allows us to take in video and imagery and make it look great. And we knew we wanted to develop those same capabilities for the vast world of creators building in Unreal Engine. And so we built our CX Pro tooling that allows us to take Unreal Engine and make it part of the experience as well. It really means that if you're a developer in Unreal Engine and you're developing for this rectangle, or maybe more today, you're developing for your mobile phone, you can take that exact same work and now all of a sudden that world that you're building, because that's really what you're doing in Unreal Engine, that world that you're building, we can put you now inside of it together, inside of our dome. Really, really exciting. And you'll see that come to life in our sports experiences. I'll cover that in a minute. But also tremendous opportunities for other non-sports creative work as well. But the key part there is we think about kind of building out the stack. You start with the display, you have a software that runs on the display, and then because these events are unique, we have these production tools we call CX Pro that allows us to pull it all together and operate our venues. Make sense? Cool. So then beyond that, right, we had that display layer. We also have the production side. So actually capturing the content. And we really take pride in this. You can almost think of it as a completely different part of our business, where we are able to capture once in incredibly high resolution. We've invested a lot in our capture systems and be able to distribute that to multiple places. So again, I think everything we're doing is immersive. Most of what we're doing is 8 or 10.5K video capture, and 10.5K is a proprietary camera system that we have in-house. That then allows us to, on one hand, just like we talked about with the pylons for an NFL game, hand off to a broadcaster on site as a part of their television production. It also allows us to bring it to our venues. It also allows us to, as I touched on with the Olympics and the World Cup, take it to VR partners, and we do that week in and week out. We do that from one single production, right? So this incredible investment that we've made to deliver the quality we need for our domes has given us a platform on the production side to do a lot more. And when we do our productions, this is a common question that we have, right? These are our own cameras when we go out and we shoot these events. And yeah, we have about 10 of these kits that fly around the world to produce all of the live events that we're doing. But the key is that we've made it as efficient as possible, right? There used to be a world where you go do television production for sports and you're driving a big truck in, right? We bring in, a rolling rack that's about the size of like a small wardrobe, right? It's not tiny, but it's massive improvement over the way things would have been done previously. Making this more efficient means that we have a team that can set up for an event, like an event tonight. They can show up yesterday. 4 operators can set up the cameras. They're fixed cameras. They're about the size of a loaf of bread, right? And the show can be run remotely. Right? So it's incredibly efficient so we can go night in and night out to run these different events. And that's that event-based production model, right? And then there's also models where we fix and install our camera systems, where they go into arenas and stadiums, and that then becomes a part of the infrastructure that gets set up on an event basis, but all the equipment stays there. And that's where we can also deliver again, because think about all the valuable data we're capturing, all the valuable video that we're capturing. That has a lot of utility for our partners, whether it's broadcasters or otherwise. So those 2 different production models are really part of what drives that success for us. And I mentioned this broadcast integration. This is an example here where our cameras were fixed and installed at the Moody Center, University of Texas. And actually students are operating these cameras. So they have basically a joystick. We kind of talked about this 180-degree capture. And so what you're seeing on the bottom right is a camera that's not physically moving, and instead it's digitally pan-tilt zooming with super slow-mo that allows you to treat that just like a physical camera, a traditional physical camera, but it's again one of these incredibly high-resolution immersive cameras instead, and it's our tooling that powers that, right? So it gives you a sense of The platform is not just what you see in the venues, but we take that same production technology and we deliver it to other places as well. Now let's get to the fun part with Unreal Engine, right? Because I touched on when we do our live events, we're capturing with a single camera fisheye from each position. Each production we do, by the way, is about 4 or 5 cameras. So like if you're talking about a basketball game, you're typically going to have, or you're always going to have the below the rim positions. So each court side, right, or each inline, a scorer's table position or announce table. So basically that court side seat. And then we're also going to have a high wide shot. And that's pretty consistent. Think about how that applies to soccer or football. It's a similar thing, capture kind of the key areas, get something in really close and get something in really wide from a safety perspective, right? And that production is done with a fisheye lens, capturing 180 degrees. And that's sort of the forward-facing part of our domes. But our domes have this area we call the cap and canopy on the top. And that's where, when we do our live sporting events, we can fill in with Unreal Engine-driven graphics. And that is really the fun stuff. This is probably one of my favorite meetings every week is reviewing the work that our experience design team does, where they're using Unreal Engine to bring in these graphical elements. Like for the start of the World Series, a giant baseball comes flying down on top of you. The ceiling opens up and this baseball comes and sits down on top of you and celebrates the start of the World Series, right? That's all built in Unreal Engine while you're watching this immersive 12K capture of the actual game, right? The sports scores, subtle touches you'll see in the back of the cap and canopy. The flags are waving kind of quietly. For NFL games, the ceiling opens up, the logos fly when there's a touchdown scored. All these kind of things that we can do to level up the experience. It's not technology just for the sake of technology. We're really trying to give you a great experience as a fan when you come to our events. That extends to the hall as well. I mentioned, right? We have this additional area we call the hall. And so the same thing, we're bringing in those traditional linear feeds, the broadcast 16:9 feeds, but we're also bringing in some subtle animations and graphics and promos and other things to really theme out the experience. We want this to feel like, in the case of doing the official Dodgers watch party, we want to feel like we're in the Dodgers clubhouse, right? So that's a level of touch we do. To use another example, working with the UFC, every event that they do for the UFC has a different graphical touch, and so our team basically takes the thematics that they have from that UFC, one of their premier pay-per-view events, and brings those graphical elements into the cap and canopy as you see before. So no baseball falling from the sky above you, but instead, when there's a decision or a KO or something important happens, there's a great animation, the lights go flying, and our team gets even more and more creative as we do that, build that out. There's the kind of tail of the tape, the fight cards, all that stuff is built into the whole experience, right? Again, using Unreal Engine. And underlying that, our CX Pro application. And similarly, when you get to the hall, you're tracking along where we are in the fight cards and the results. We have some subtle, kind of stylized graphics. You see those head-to-head matchups, and we're bringing in those linear feeds. So we really produce in a very customized fashion these marquee events. So all that comes together, and here's a little, for those who haven't been, here's a little video that highlights what we do at Cosm. I like that. I mean, that's the official one. I like the unofficial one. Any Dodgers fans out here? This is a great moment. All right, so let's relive this one together. This is that final out as captured on Instagram. And what you'll see as well is we actually brought in a confetti cannon. So celebrating that final out, the Dodgers win, the place is going nuts. And I'm up there actually cueing them to fire off the confetti cannon. We get the music going. And that's the sort of fan experience you want to see, right? That's why people go to these events. It's not because the technology is incredible. It is. One of my colleagues, our head of venues, says, the technology will wow, but the hospitality will win, right? Keep that in mind. We're doing tech, not for the sake of tech, as we heard earlier. We're doing it because we want to build a great experience. We want fans to be amazed, right? That is really the kind of first principle to keep in mind. So that's a quick little overview of everything that goes into not just our sports events, but really that platform overall. We made a fun announcement this week. I thought it'd be a good one to highlight for you all in case you missed it. And that is branching out into our experiential cinema. And what is experiential cinema? It's taking some of the traditional, say, studio content, and how can we feature that content, but create an immersive experience around it. And boy, we're fortunate on this one. It's the 25-year anniversary of a movie called The Matrix. So appropriate. So here's a little sneak peek of what that's going to look like.
Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself.
It's a teaser more than a trailer. We'll be sharing a little bit more. That comes out June 6th. But the point being that whole platform that we built out, I always say is really a platform for creators of all kinds. We're working with the live sports work. We're working with independent artists. We're working with studios. And this becomes really a platform for creators to build things that we haven't even thought about yet. And I think we're going to be breaking some new boundaries here with The Matrix. So I think that leaves us a few minutes for questions. Do you have any questions?
I'm standing up. Hello, everybody. I'm curious to know what types of events you're finding are performing well and how you measure performance. Is it bar sales? Is it ticket sales? But obviously you have volume with the ball games, but you mentioned golf, which I'd be interested to see how that performs.
Yeah.
The racing, immersive experience. So what are you saying is working well?
Yeah, so the way we think about performance overall, by the way, is really trying to drive utilization throughout the day. So Premier League soccer absolutely kills it, and it's at 8 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 6 o'clock in the morning on a weekday or in a weekend, right? NFL games, fill the full day on Sunday, right? But Premier League, in some ways, you could say does even better because of the utilization, our ability to go from event to event to event. And if you look at our days, they're packed. We have a big wave surf project called Big Wave with Bill Bridges. That's playing I think later tonight, right? After the games, like there is just a nonstop back-to-back programming of our events. What we see, I think, the way we evaluate what does well is really trying to hit unique audiences. Obviously, there's the obvious audiences, the UFCs and WWEs and NBAs and NFLs, all that we work with. But doing things like golf, doing things like NASCAR, where we can bring in those discrete communities. We're fortunate that our venues are built to a size that we can kind of broaden our reach. We don't just need to do the biggest investments. We have the Kentucky Derby coming up here. That's going to be an incredible one, right? So there's lots of things that we can do that can be successful because of the way the venues are set up. Okay, I'm going to follow the lead here.
No problem. So you clearly have rights with a lot of the deals with a lot of the rights holders, the sports leagues. It seems like you have a massive opportunity for advertising, branding, and marketing, because most of the things I saw were event-specific promotions, but not like brands or advertising. Have you all thought about generating revenue that way?
Yeah, so let me start by, I think what you touched on is exactly right, that it starts with the content, right? So the most important thing is our relationships with great partners, league partners, broadcast partners, team partners, right? And a lot of times that means making sure that we're doing their sponsors and their advertisers right and bringing them through in meaningful ways as a part of our activations. But it absolutely does leave opportunities that we haven't jumped into too much yet, but we certainly expect to, around how can we bring in other sponsors and advertisers into the experience. Right now, we've just been very focused on making sure that experience is right and making sure that we're doing right by our content partners.
Hi, my name is Christina Wilson. I am a FEMBA 2027 student. And I actually attended Cosm for the Lions Houston game, and it was an amazing experience. However, I had a general admission ticket,
Yep.
and the line was all the way down the street. It was in conflict with the Chargers game that had just let out. So traffic was crazy. It was really hard to get to the venue. But then once we got in, it was amazing. But how are you guys combating the limitations of the physical space? Because with general admissions, there are some sight lines that you can't fully see the
Yep.
dome, and then it's a wide range of people, especially leftover people from previous games. How are you guys handling the different obstacles that you're starting to see with more popular games and popular seasons?
Yeah. So I think you're right to call out there's certainly some challenges that we need to figure out how to get better at. And one of those you touch on is parking on game days. And I think we've gotten to a much better place with our partners in Hollywood Park in terms of managing that inflow with so many other great events going on in the area. But the GA is a very important point. GA is a type of ticket that we sell that gives you first come, first serve access to some standing room, even some decent kind of high top seats around the dome. So you can buy reserved seats, right? But we also like to make, and this is where I'd kind of flip it around. The goal for us is to make sure we have an affordable price point, because not everybody's going to be able to afford on a regular basis that reserved seat. And we want to make sure that we can bring in a wider audience with that GA ticket. And we want to make sure that we're giving those GA customers an opportunity to have as great of an experience as possible. The challenge there for us has been, and full transparency, has been that sometimes so many GA tickets get sold, those fans learn to come early, and if you come a little later, now all of a sudden those more premium GA locations are full. And we think we have a great experience for those GA buyers in the hall as well, but we're starting to look at, hey, should we be segregating those ticketing sections a little bit more so that there's greater alignment between what you've bought and the best version of it versus the version in the hall. I will say though, for the price point and the GA ticket, watching that game in the hall is a tremendous experience. But sometimes we hear our fans, and we hear that they might be disappointed that they're not getting as good of a GA view as somebody else's. So all part of our learnings as we try to get better and better, but it's appreciated. All right, I think we're done. Appreciate your time, everybody. Thank you.